أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري يفقهوا قولي النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم وأزواجه أمهاتهم وأولو الأرحام بعضهم أولى ببعض في كتاب الله من المؤمنين والمهاجرين إلا أن تفعلوا إلى يا أولياء بكم معروفا كان ذلك في الكتاب مستورا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers in Islam. Before we begin, I'd like to give, and I want everyone to inshallah join in with giving durood and blessings upon the Prophet ﷺ by reciting durood Ibrahim. Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. You know, when I was at school, there was two words that would cause a fight instantly, like straight away. You know, these two words, like, you know, you'd sit in the classroom, and by the time you get to the playground, you know, people will be getting hurt. These two words in everyone's life, all the brothers sitting here right now, is the boundary line. And if anyone says it or even comes near to saying it, you know, people are going to get battered and, you know, they're going to get lamped really, really hard. These two words, I don't know if anyone's guessed it, but is your mum. Okay? In Americans, they say your mama. Yeah? Our Bengali brothers, they say torma. And if it's our Pakistani brothers, it's tari be. Okay? So no matter what language you say in, you know, people are going to get angry. And any discussion that was had before that is going to turn and it's going to get into something physical. Okay? Cussing someone's mum is something that's going to get anyone angry and it's going to make anyone's blood boil. You know, this is the same woman who bore you for 9 months in the stomach. The same woman that, you know, you can't repay one contraction back to her when she was giving birth to you. She's the same woman that when you urinated as a baby, she would sleep in your urine, and she would give give you her comfortable, her dry space. Okay, this is the same woman who cooks, cleans for you right now, and washed your bum when you were a child. So to have someone insult your mum is like, you know, no son can actually take that. It's like every son in the world being insulted. Now today's talk, brothers, is not about, you know, how to treat our mothers. Okay, that's something that we can do separately, or how we should treat our parents. But this is something which is much more important than that. Okay, it's much more important than our mothers, our fathers, our wives, our children, and our friends. Now this individual that I'm talking about is our beloved Prophet Muhammed SAW. Okay, and to show how important this individual is, what we recited as a group through the Ibrahim, this is something that we recite, you know, every single day in our salah. Okay, this is something that, you know, just to give you an idea of what is being said in this durood is, you know, you're sending blessings upon Muhammad SAW and upon his family. Okay, and this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that is praiseworthy and glorious. So this is how important this individual is. This individual is one of the reasons why we're Muslim. Okay, the Quran was revealed to this individual. This is the Quran that we read, and it was revealed first to him, then it was passed on to the world. Now, I don't have to mention this to anyone, and if anyone doesn't know about this, but he was actually insulted last week, okay, through a film called The Innocence of the Muslims. Now, a lot of mystery surrounds this film, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail about this film, because, you know, Salman Rushdie has actually come out and said it's ugly crap. someone like Salman Rushdie used to come around and say it's ugly crap, you know, it goes to show how crap this film is. Okay, this is a $5 million project made by a so-called, you know, Jewish director called Sam Basil. He's currently, well, he was hiding when I actually wrote this my talk, but at the moment he's being questioned by the American authorities. Okay, this film was they had like 100 odd Jewish donors who contributed healthily to this film. Now, whatever the case is, I don't know if anyone's seen this, but I've seen clips of this and I couldn't stomach this. And as my brother on my left, he said on Friday, you know, it's something that's disgusting and something that, you know, it's insulting on a next level. And we've had the Prophet ﷺ being insulted many a time in the last 10 years or so, even more than that. But this time, you know, this time is something that it gets right into your stomach, into your gut. Okay? And it's clear propagation to the Muslim Ummah. It's something that the Muslim Ummah, you know, this has been made, this $5 million has been spent on this film to provoke the Ummah around the world. And this individual, he was actually interviewed by, I believe it was Guardian. And he states clearly in his interview that Islam is a cancer. And this movie is political. And it was helped to expose the world of the flaws of Islam. Now, I'm sure everyone in this room has either been spoken to about this film or has a lot of questions about this film, and a lot of youth, and it's particularly aimed at the youth. How do we come about and, you know, without lamping, without hitting this other individual who's insulting our deen, how do we come about and rebuke this this disgusting film? So there's few action points that, you know, I like everyone to take away, insha'Allah. Now, the first action point is actually exposing the West into this thing called freedom of speech. Everyone must have heard about this. Okay, and you know, this freedom of speech is something that is pushed around left, right, and centre. You know, by the politicians, by people that we work with, the people that we know, even Muslims themselves are saying, you know what, it's my freedom. Okay, now first things first. This insult on the Prophet ﷺ is something that is unacceptable to every Muslim on this planet Earth. Okay, and it's a non-negotiable point for us. Okay, so if the Prophet ﷺ is being insulted, we need to do something about it. Now, as Muslims living in, this freedom of speech, going back to this word, these three words, freedom of speech, when it suits the West, when it suits these individuals, they would happily use this notion of freedom of speech. But when it suits them, they would happily ignore it. So last week, Kate Middleton, the wife of William, they got married last year. You know, I was very happy, and I'm sure everyone else was happy. Yeah, because we all got Friday off. Okay, we had an extended weekend. Okay, and they got married last year, and it's been over a year since they've been married. And last week, while they were in a French magazine, decided to take some pictures of her naked while she was sunbathing, and they published it in a French magazine. Now, this has actually not only the British community, but the royal family has made them, you know, quite angry. And in a royal statement, they've said, a statement by the couple, their royal highnesses have been hugely saddened to learn that a French publication and a photographer have invaded their privacy in a grotesque and unjustifiable manner. Fair enough. But what about the individual's freedom of speech, you know, freedom to take pictures? Anyway, the statement continues. Their royal highnesses had every expectation of privacy in the remote house. It is unthinkable that anyone should take such photographs, let alone publish them. Now, this incident is very close to what happened to William's mum, Diana, you know, over 15 years ago, when she was caught, pictured naked. Okay, and again, the royal family was up in arms. And you know, you think this individual who took the picture, he's going to be sued. You know, on Sunday, yesterday, an Irish newspaper actually, you know, produced these and published these pictures. And again, the royal family is up in arms, and they're not very happy about it. But again, when it suits the media, when it suits the West, they are happy to say, okay, you know what, this is my freedom of speech, and this is something that I'll do. But when it infringes on someone else's freedom of speech, it's something that it's like, you know, okay, it doesn't suit me, I won't do it. But when the Prophet ﷺ, he's insulted, and when 1.5 billion Muslims are insulted by this, what did the West say? I'll go into in a bit more detail what the politicians have said, but it's something like, you know, how many people have actually, in 2005, how many people actually, when the caricatures of the Prophet ﷺ were published, how many people said, you know what, we'll take it off for the sake of freedom of speech because it's insulting Muslims, we'll take it off. But no one did. They still published it, and the Western governments, they said, you know what, everyone's entitled to their freedom of speech, and we're not going to interfere with this matter. Also last week, a Muslim called Azhar Ahmed, he was found guilty of grossly offensive communication by posting a Facebook status stating that all soldiers should die and go to hell. And he's waiting to be sentenced at this present time. So where is Azhar Ahmed's freedom of speech? So when he attacks their values, freedom of speech, at the door. When he doesn't, when he's in line with their values, they're happy to lap it up. Okay? Now, this is something that, this hypocrisy has to be clearly exposed. Not just to the Muslims, but also to the non-Muslims as well. Okay, but this idea of freedom of speech is rife in many people's mind. Okay, now while this is all going on, this is action point 2. While this is all going on, what are the rulers saying? Okay, so when we've got a problem, let's look to the Western rulers. A lot of people say, yeah, let's go to NATO. Let's look at America. They're the ones who can sort our problems out. You know, what's Britain going to do about this? They're insulting our Prophet. Let's see what these guys are going to say. And a statement that was released by Hillary Clinton, the Foreign Minister of America, she said clearly that this is a disgusting film. And, you know, you're thinking to yourself, alhamdulillah, you know, she's standing up for the truth. You know, she's right. It is a disgusting film. But when you carry on reading her statement, she carries on to say and says that the US does not stop individual citizens from expressing their views, no matter how distasteful that may be. So she's basically giving you something and then she's taking it back straight away. So she's agreeing that this film is disgusting, but she's also saying we're not going to stop, you know, 1.5 billion Muslims being insulted by this film. Her boss, President Barack Obama, what he said was, this is a reminder that the freedoms we enjoy, sometimes even the freedoms we take for granted, they're only sustained because they are people like those who are killed, who are willing to stand up for those freedoms, who are willing to fight for those freedoms, and in some case to lay down for their lives for these freedoms. And there's two things that we take from this. Firstly, he loves the word freedoms because he said it many times in this little paragraph that I just paraphrased. And secondly, this word notion of freedom is actually ingrained in their aqidah, in their way of life. So this is something that they wholeheartedly follow. And again, it goes back to the question, they don't care who they insult. They're more than happy to you know, follow their freedom of speech. Malarkey. This morning, as I was driving to work, I had the misfortune of listening to Tony Blair. And he was asked about this process, what happening in the Muslim world, and he said that firstly, again he said the same thing as Hillary Clinton. This film is wrong and it's laughable. But then he goes on to say that in the end, we both need a leadership within these countries and within Islam to stand up and say, look, there is a proper modern way of reconciling religious faith, democracy in society, and we need ourselves from the outside to engage with this process of change in a way that's constructive. So he's linking democracy to Islam. He's saying that the Muslims, rulers of these people, we're backwards, and that the fact that we can't take a joke, that's what he's basically saying. We should be able to take a joke. We're only insulting someone. Okay? And you know, so something very important that I've kind of missed out on is, you know, why is the Prophet ﷺ so important to us, and why do we love, and why should we love this, you know, this individual so much? And the ayah that I recited at the beginning from Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 6, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, the Prophet is more worthy of the believers than themselves, and his wives are in the position of their mothers. So the wives of the Prophet are our mothers. And those of blood relationships are more entitled to inheritance to the decree of Allah than the other believers and the immigrants, except that you may do to your close associates a kindness through bequest. That was the book inscribed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, if you don't love Prophet alayhi salam more than you love yourself, more than you love your wealth, more than you love your parents, your friends, you're not a believer. And I was actually thinking about this earlier on. You know the West, they push this notion of, before you die, you must love. You have to love once before you die. I disagree with that. In fact, I agree and disagree with that. I think we should all love, but in order to find true love, we should love the Prophet alayhi salam. That is the true love, and that is the love that we should be dying with, inshallah. Okay. Now I've talked about what the West have said. What the West have said in all this. Let's look back and just turn the compass, and let's look at what the Muslim rulers, what the East are saying. Okay. That was it. Nothing. Okay, that wasn't a drink break for me. that is the reaction of the Muslims, the Muslim rulers. Okay. On Friday, imagine this. On Friday, Erdogan of Turkey, he's sitting there. I'm sure he's having his Bash. What tea is it that you like from Turkey? Apple tea. Yeah, he's chilling in Istanbul. Well, not at the moment. He's in Ukraine. He's chilling in Istanbul, having his apple tea. He gets a call, and he gets a call from his master. And his master, as everyone can guess, is Barack Obama. And but Obama is, there was the spokesperson of White House, Jay Carney. He said that Obama sent a message, a personal message, to the leader of Turkey, Prime Minister Erdogan, asking for his assistance to speak out against the violence. And he carries on and says, and I think you saw that the Prime Minister did that, and the President is very appreciative of these statements and the actions these leaders have taken personally. Okay. Erdogan, this individual, what did he say? Erdogan, in a speech, he said, the YouTube video was a strong provocation against our way of life. Insulting the Prophet cannot be justified as freedom of expression. Religion and the Prophet are sacred values and are untouchable. So imagine if Obama did not say anything, he would not have been listening to, he wouldn't be adhering, and he wouldn't have made the statement. So when his master calls up and says, make a statement, he makes a statement. Okay, so I like to think of Erdogan as like the dog. Okay, and the owner is Barack Obama. Now, as well as there's another individual that I want to mention is Morsi of Egypt. Now I don't like to think of him as a dog. He's more of a puppy, because he's just come into the political field. He's just become a prime minister of Egypt. Okay. Now this individual, just to show how much he wants to be liked by his master. Okay. In a recent interview with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he clearly said that Morsi is yet to refer to the Jewish state by its name. He has not uttered the words Israel by his words. Okay, and this is clearly evidence with what's happening in Sinai. I don't want to go into that in too much detail, but with the battle that was happening just recently, Reuters had an interview with Morsi. And with that word he did not mention the word Israel once. So this is how much he wants to please his masters, that he's refusing to say the word Israel. It's actually haram for him. Na'udhu billah. But anyway, what did he say? He said all of us Egyptians reject any form of attack or insult to our Prophet. He carried on and said, I actually spoke to the US President Obama on Thursday, and I affirmed to him the need for deterrent legal measures against those who want to damage relations between peoples, and particularly between the people of Egypt and the people of America. Brothers, let me ask you a question. This is a rhetorical question as well. Who did these two leaders actually, the statements that they made, who did they make it for? Did they make it for their master, Obama, or did they make it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Something that I want you guys to ponder on, inshallah. Okay. And also, how can I forget Khomeini, the Iranian supreme leader of the so-called Islamic State of Iran. He said, if the American officials are sincere to their claim that they have nothing to do with this film, then they must punish all elements behind this huge, ugly crime. Okay. Now again, all these individuals are dogs. And what do dogs like to do? They like to bark. Okay? And that's all they're doing. There's no action coming from these people. Saudi Arabia is still supplying oil and gas to America. Okay, so no relations have been severed there. Zardari of Pakistan, the NATO alliance, which shouldn't be there in the first place, are going from Karachi to the north of Pakistan, and that's still going on. Okay, so he's not stopped that. Back to Mursi, the Suez Canal, which Egypt controls, or so-called controls, is still open, and ships are going through that. He's not closed that. So we see that these rulers, they only work for one person, and it's not who we worship, it's who they worship. Okay? Now that was the second action point. Now we've looked to the west, there's no solution. Okay, they're not going to help us. We've looked to the east, again, there's no one who's able to help us. So who do we turn to? Okay, now as Muslims we turn to Islam, and we should be living under an Islamic state, and that's something that we don't have at this present time. But, and this is another discussion altogether, and for the future we should be working for an Islamic state, inshallah. But when we did have the Islamic state, how did the Khalifs, how did the rulers, the ones who feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how did they react? Okay, when George Bernard Shaw, the famous British writer, he wanted in 1913, this is 11 years before the Islamic State was destroyed in 1924, he wanted to write a blasphemous article about our Prophet, noble Prophet alayhi salam. And Lord Chamberlain at that stage, this bearing in mind the Islamic State was at its knees, he was very, very weak. He said to him, he was afraid of the repercussions that the Islamic State would bring, and the Turks would basically annihilate them. So he advised him to basically go against it and not to write this article. 20 years prior to the destruction of the Khilafah, in France there was a play that was going to be staged by Voltaire in France and Britain, and it was called Muhammad or Fanaticism. Okay, now this play was basically taking the mick of the Prophet ﷺ and his marriage to Zainab radiallahu anhu. Now when Sultan Abdul Hamid II, the Caliph at that time, when he heard of this, he basically warned the French ambassador, and he said to him, look, you can have a lot of serious political repercussions if this was to continue. The French duly stopped, but the British, being arrogant they are, they decided to still carry on with this play. So Sultan Abdul Hamid II, he wrote to the British, and he said to them, again he said the same thing what he said to France. Their reply was, the tickets have been sold. Okay, and banning the play would be infringement on the freedom of our citizens. So then, unlike the rulers of today, the Muslim rulers of today, he wrote a letter back, Sultan Hamid, and he said to the British, I will issue a command to the Islamic Ummah declaring that Britain is attacking and insulting our Prophet, and I will declare jihad. That's it. That's what he said. Upon receiving that, this notion of freedom of speech and the citizens being, having this freedom of speech, that was out the window. Everyone forgot about that, and the play was stopped. Okay. Now, I've spoken for quite a while. It wasn't meant to be going for this while, but the 3 points I want everyone to, inshallah, take away with them, and inshallah this is something that we can talk about in Q&A, is firstly we expose the West and the hypocrisy that they bring to our lands, and this notion of freedom of speech, because it's not free. If it was free, we wouldn't have the police, for example. Okay, we need to show the Muslims that the Muslim rulers, they don't care about us Muslims. Okay, they care about their masters, the likes of Obama and Cameron. Okay, and thirdly, we need to. The only way we get full protection is through the Islamic State, a Khilafah state. That we need a man that fears Allah, and the one who can you can stop these attacks as and when needed, when they happen from the West or whoever it is. Okay, anything good that I've said is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and anything bad is from myself and shaitan. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم. For that, brothers. I'm going to open up the floor, inshallah.